Hi everyone, my name is Wardul Hassan. I'm your instructor for Introduction to Web Programming. This is our first class. Each week I have designed the Canvas course that you will be able to go through the course. These video lectures are optional. You can also read the book yourself and complete the participatory online web lab that Zybook has. Also, there will be quiz and there will be assignments on each session. Throughout the course, you will have to do a group project. We haven't decided if it's going to be a group project or an individual one, but there will be some components of project. There will be exams, but each week you need to cover your class participation through the Zybook, and then you have to submit your assignments and you have to submit your quizzes. Um, you can watch these lectures. There is a syllabus that has been posted, but you can watch this on your own at your own time. Um, but the assignment due is posted. You have to submit it within the due dates. So let's start. Sorry. Okay. So this is the web history video. I'm not going to play the video over here. This is already posted in the Canvas class. You can watch it from there. There are more optional videos that I have posted. You can go over those. These are not mandatory. You can watch it, but these are some fun videos. Though these videos are somewhat dated, like these are old. So at the end of this video, it talks about Article 13, but that's really old video, but the core concept remains the same. So these are optional videos. You can watch it or you can skip it as well. So let's begin by exploring the early history and evolution of computer networks leading up to the development of the internet as we know it today. In the 1940s and 1950s, computers were largely isolated machines. They operated independently without any direct connection to other computers. Each computer worked as a solidarity unit, so processing data and running programs on its own. However, by the 1960s, a significant shift began to take place with the emergence of computer networks. This innovation allowed computers to communicate and share information with each other, laying the groundwork for what we eventually become to know as Internet. The major milestones came in 1969 um, with the birth of the Internet. Initially, it was a network of just four interconnected computers. This small experimental network was the beginning of what we know, would grow to what we would grow into a vast interconnected systems that we have today. Fast forward to today, the internet has become the largest global computer network, connecting billions of devices around the world. It is now a fundamental part of our daily lives, supporting communications, information sharing, commerce, entertainment, and much more. In its early days, the internet was quite different from what we experience now. Features were very basic. There were plain text documents were the norm with no images, complex formatting, or interactive elements. These were not there. The focus was purely on text-based communication. And file transfer protocol or FTP was one of the first methods used to transfer files over the internet. It allows users to connect to servers, browse through available documents, and download files of interest. You can see an example of a public FTP site used by NASA in the next slide. So here it is. So this was how it was used previously. This is a screenshot of the NASA's FTP file transfer protocol sharing internet. So internet was like this. You could see only text. You can browse through different folders. So now let's talk about the revolutionary development of the history of the internet, the birth of the World Wide Web or WWW. In the early 1990s, a scientist named Tim Berners-Lee, working at CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, developed a new and revolutionary way to share information over the internet. His creation was called the World Wide Web, or simply the web. The innovation dramatically changed how information could be accessed and shared, making it far more convenient and accessible for users around the globe. The World Wide Web introduced a more user-friendly method for sharing the files on the internet compared to the earlier methods that I showed in FTP. It brought together three key components. One was the HTML files. These are text files containing links to other files. HTML or hypertext markup language, HTML stands for hypertext markup language, is the foundational language used to create the structure and content of the web pages. And then there was web browser to view these HTML files. A program called web browser is used. Browsers allows users to see these HTML files from a visual format, making it easier to read and interact with the content. And then HTTP protocol. So HTTP protocol. This stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is the set of rules used for transferring HTML files between computers. It defines how messages are formatted and transmitted, and how web servers, browsers should respond to various commands. To understand the difference the web made, let's compare it with earlier method like FTP or file transfer protocol. FTP, sorry about that. I got a bit of cold. Anyway, FTP or file transfer protocol. FTP involved users trying commands to log in into the server and retrieve files. For example, a user would type command like login and get file one to download files. This method was functional but not particularly user friendly. You have to memorize this. There was this in terminal in the black screen. You have to type login space get file and then the file name, and then it will have been downloaded. So you have to memorize and know what are the files over there. So it's not very user friendly. And then HTTP came on the other hand, HTTP revolutionized the experience by allowing users to simply click on hyperlinks to navigate between different web pages. Clicking a link automatically opens the linked file or web page, making the process intuitive and easy. This is how we use the internet now. Files could also contain multiple links containing users to a vast web of information. In summary, the World Wide Web made accessible and sharing information much easier and more intuitive. So what is HTML? Let's take a closer look at HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML is the standard markup language used for creating web documents. It is the backbone of every web page, defining the structure and content that users see and interact with. So what is exactly this hypertext? Hypertext refers to the text that contains links to other pieces of text. Today, hypertext extends beyond just text. It includes links to images, videos, and various other types of contents. This ability to link different pieces of information is a core feature that makes the web so interconnected and dynamic. HTML is a form of document markup. This means it uses special symbols or markings in the document that provides extra information. This marking helps define links, such as HTML can create direct connections to other content, allowing users to click on a word or phrase to navigate to the related information or another web page. And then formatting. HTML defines how text and other elements are presented on the page. This includes headings, paragraphs, lists, images, and more. It gives structure to the content, making it easier to read and understand. And then images. HTML allows for the inclusion of images within a document, adding visual interest and context to the text. These images can be embedded directly or linked from other sources. In addition to this, HTML also allows for the inclusion of metadata. Metadata is additional data that can be embedded in the HTML document to provide more information about the content. This might include search engine keywords for Google to rank your HTML page. For example, this helps improve the visibility of the web page in search engine results. It also include author information. For example, metadata can specify who wrote the document or who owns the content on the HTML page. And then language of the document. Indicating the language used in the document helps browser render it correctly and assist search engines in indexing it appropriately. To sum up, HTML is the foundational language that structures the web, making it possible to link and format content in a meaningful way. It enables the web to interact and navigate. which is essential for web experience we have today. So this is the first web page that Tim Berners-Lee made. This is you were looking at this page. This is the first HTML page that was out there. So this is basically history. So let's explore the evolution of hypertext, a key concept that eventually led the creation of the World Wide Web. Understanding the history helps us appreciate how far we have come in terms of information sharing and interactivity. Our journey begins in 1945 with Vannevar Bush. Forgive me if I pronounce these names incorrectly. An American engineer and science administrator, Bush wrote a seminal essay titled As We May Think, in which he introduced the concept of memex. The memex was a theoretical machine designed to store linked documents, allowing users to follow associative trails through a vast amount of information. This concept of linking documents laid the initial foundation of what would become later hypertext. Next, in 1965, Ted Nelson, an American pioneer of information technology, coined the term hypertext. Nelson's work focused on managing information that was complex, constantly changing, and uncertain. His vision was to create a non-linear form of writing where readers could jump from one piece of information to another, forming a web of interconnected ideas. This idea was groundbreaking and set the stage for future developments. In 1968, Doug Engelbart, an American engineer and inventor, took the significant step forward by demonstrating the use of hyperlinks. During a famous presentation known as the Mother of All Demos, Engelbart showed how users could use a mouse to click on hyperlinks and navigate between documents in the online system. This was one of the first practical demonstrations of how hypertext could work, making the concept more tangible and real. Finally, in 1987, Apple introduced HyperCard for Macintosh. HyperCard was a software that allowed users to create interactive hypertext applications. It was essentially a stack of virtual cards that could contain text, images, and buttons that linked to other cards. HyperCard was widely popular and gave everyday users the tool to create their own hypertext applications, democratizing the creation of linked information. These historical milestones, Bush's Memex, Nelson's hypertext, Engelbart's hyperlinks, and Apple's HyperCard, laid the groundbreaking work for Tim Berners-Lee's invention of the World Wide Web. Each contributed a crucial piece to the puzzle, leading to the interconnected information-rich web that we use today. Let's clarify an important distinction that often gets overlooked: the difference between the internet and the web. Although these terms are frequently used interchangeably, they refer to different concepts. First, let's talk about the internet. The internet is a vast global network that connects millions of computers. Think of it as the infrastructure or the backbone that allows computers to communicate with each other. It operates using a set of rules known as protocols, which enable different types of devices to connect and communicate. These protocols ensures that the data can be sent, received, and understood between computers. The internet supports the transmission of various types of data, not just web pages. It carries emails, music files, videos, online games, and more. Essentially, it is the medium that supports multiple forms of digital communication and data exchange. Now, let's move on to the web or the World Wide Web. The web is a specific way of using the internet. It consists of a collection of interconnected documents and resources, primarily in the form of web pages. These pages are accessed using web browsers, which allows users to navigate from one page to another through hyperlinks. In essence, the web is one of the many services that run on the internet. It's huge, interconnected library of information where you can jump from one topic to another within a click of a link. Today, the web has become the most common and familiar form of internet traffic. When we think about going online, we're usually thinking about accessing the web, checking websites, reading articles, streaming videos, and so on. To sum up, the internet is the underlying network of computers that supports various types of digital communication, while the web is one of the many applications of the internet focused significantly on the sharing of documents and resources. Let's dive into the web browsers and the competitive history that shaped the web browsing experience we know today. What is a web browser? Web browser is a program that serves as a gateway to the internet. It allows us to access, view, and interact with web content. The primary function of web browser are to download HTML documents from web servers. When you enter a web address, the browser retrieves the corresponding HTML file from the server, then display these documents with the appropriate formatting. Browsers interpret the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to present the content in a user-friendly way, including text, images, and other media. Allow user interactions such as clicking on hyperlinks or navigating to other pages, filling out forms, or playing videos. This interactive capability is a key feature that makes the web dynamic and engaging. Early browser competition. In the early days of the web, different browser developers were competing fiercely to attract users by offering the best web browsing experience. To gain an edge, these developers introduced proprietary enhancements. These were unique features and interactive capabilities that often only work within their specific browser. However, this competition led to a major problem: web page incompatibility. Websites optimized for one browser might not display correctly or at all in another. This inconsistency made web development challenging and the user experience frustrating. The first browser war went from 1995 to 2002. This period was characterized by a focus on new features. Browsers like Netscape, Navigator, and the Internet Explorer were rapidly adding capabilities to provide richer web experience. Unfortunately, the race for new features led to frequent incompatibilities with different browsers supporting different standards and features. The first browser war ended with Internet Explorer emerging as the dominant browser, largely due to its bundling with Microsoft Windows. And then came the second browser war from 2004 to 2013. By this time, new players like Mozilla Firefox and Google Chrome had entered the scene. The focus of the competition shifted to performance and standard compliances. Browsers aim to be faster, more secure, and more consistent with web standards to provide better user experience. The second browser war saw Google Chrome rise to dominance thanks to its speed, minimalistic design, and strong adherence to web standards. So this is just a timeline of the web browser. So 1990, the first web browser was introduced. Many new web browser came in 1992. In 2002, Internet Explorer dominates. 2004, many new web browsers. 2008, Chrome browser created. So this is just a timeline of how web browser war went down. So as the web evolved, the need for standardization became increasingly clear. In the early days of the web was plagued by frequent incompatibilities between different browsers. Websites often looked and behaved differently depending on which browser you were using. This inconsistency created a lot of frustration for both developers and users, as a web page that looked perfect on one browser might be completely broken in another. To address these issues, the industry recognized the need for standard HTML and other technologies. Standardization ensures the web pages look and function consistently across all browsers. By following the same set of guidelines, developers can create a more uniform and predictable web experience no matter which browser a user chooses. So W3C, or World Wide Web Consortium, played a crucial role in these early standardization efforts. As an international standards organization, W3C traditionally controlled HTML and other key web standards. One of their significant achievement was the release of HTML5 in 2014. HTML5 was a comprehensive and modern standard that included new features for multimedia, graphics, and more without the need for additional plugins. It was designed to ensure that web content would be accessible and functional across all browsers. WHATWG, or Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group, in 2019, a significant shift occurred when responsibility of HTML standards transitioned from WC3 to the WHATWG, or Web Hypertext Application Technology Working Group. The WHATWG developed the HTML living standard, a continuously evolving standard without version numbers. This approach allows the standard to adapt and improve over time, incorporating new features and best practices as they emerge. The HTML living standard ensures that the web pages behave uniformly across modern browsers, providing a consistent web experience. So, W3C versus WHATWG. It's worth noting that there was a period when W3C and WHATWG published competing HTML standards, which created some confusion in the industry. However, both organizations now agree that the WHATWG will set the HTML standard moving forward. As a result, the term HTML5 has become synonymous with the HTML living standard. While we might still hear HTML5 in conversation, it is important to understand that the HTML living standard is the current and evolving foundation of the web. In conclusion, the move towards standardization led by the organizations like W3C and WHATWG has been essential in creating more consistent, accessible, and user-friendly web. This commitment to standards helps ensure that the web remains open and interoperable, supporting a wide range of devices and browsers. Let's explore how web design has evolved over the years, from early days of the internet to the modern practices as we use today. Early web design. In the early days of web development, markup languages were used to control both the structure and appearance of web documents. There wasn't a clear distinction between how a web page looked and how it was organized. For example, using the B element in HTML would make text bold, directly mixing content with its presentation. This approach made the code less flexible and more difficult to manage. Because the structure, presentation, and interaction were all interwoven, it was challenging to ensure the web pages would look and behave consistently across different devices, such as large desktop screens, small mobile phones, and even printers. Challenges with early design was one of the main issues with early web design was ensuring consistency. As more devices were with varying screen size and capabilities emerged, it became increasingly difficult to create web pages that look good and function well on all of them. Additionally, this mixed approach made it hard to maintain web pages and adapt them to new technologies and display formats. Developers had to go back and modify the same code repeatedly, making updates time consuming and error prone. The modern web design and separation of concerns. To address these challenges, web development evolved to embrace the concepts of separation of concerns. This approach clearly divides the structure, presentation, and the behavior of the web into three distinct components. One is the HTML, hypertext markup language. HTML defines the structure and content of the web page. It focuses on the semantic meaning of elements such as headings, paragraphs, and lists, which helps search engines and browsers understand the content's purpose. HTML lays out the foundational building blocks of a web page, organizing the content in a logical way. Then second is CSS, or cascading style sheets. CSS specifies the layout of visual appearances of a web page. It controls styling elements like colors, fonts, margins, spacing, making the content visually appealing. By separating this presentation layer, CSS allows developers to easily change the look of a website without altering its structure, making it adaptable to different devices and screen sizes. JavaScript describes the dynamic behavior, the interaction and interactions of a web page. It allows the interactive elements such as buttons, forms, and animations, enhancing user engagement and providing a more interactive experience by handling the behavior separately. JavaScript makes it possible to create complex, responsive, and interactive user interfaces. So this was chapter 1.1. History of internet. Let's in our next videos we'll talk more about the internet of things. Let's see, how do I stop? Okay.